Now, for all these topics and more, let's bring in Texas Congressman Wesley Hunt. Congressman, great to see you. Thank you for being here. I want to first talk about these hearings that have been happening this week. Today we had one which, in my mind, sounded a lot different from the previous ones. Particularly, today was Governor Noem. She's the nominee for Department of Homeland Security. But we had Pam Bondi and Pete Hegseth, in which you had Democrats throwing hardballs, but getting them thrown right back at them. I just want to play a montage of some of what happened and get your reaction. Roll it.
You're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years? You're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
It would not be appropriate for a prosecutor to start with a name and look for a crime. It's a prosecutor's job to start with a crime and look for a name, correct?
Senator, I think that is the whole problem with the weaponization that we have seen the last 4 years.
Are you aware of any factual basis to investigate Liz Cheney? Yes or no?
Senator, that's a hypothetical, and I'm not going to answer that. I'm also worried about Liz Cheney, Senator.
The president has
You know
called
what we
for
should be worried about?
Ms. Bondi, please answer my questions.
The crime rate in California right now
You are
is
aware
through the roof.
Congressman, do they realize what just hit them? Every one of those shots was thrown right back at them, much harder.
Well, this is why President Trump made these picks. That was the mandate that was given to President Trump by the American people. And his cabinet selections have been nothing short of outstanding. I think Pete Hegseth handled himself perfectly. I think Pam Bondi did an outstanding job. I think Marco Rubio did an outstanding job. And again, we were told by the American public that we do not want business as usual in Washington. And in these picks, that's exactly what we are seeing. We are seeing non-traditional candidates that are going to get the America First agenda through, just like the American people voted for, and brilliantly, President Trump has chosen outstanding candidates.
But you know what's interesting? The hardball that they were playing during the election campaign, they were warned by some people to try to be more cooperative and mean what you say when you talk about uniting the country instead of calling everybody they don't like a Nazi. They hadn't gotten off at the beginning of the week, but today, by the time they got to Kristi Noem, it seemed that they realized they'd made a mistake earlier in the week. Do you get that?
Well, they've been making a mistake for the past 4 years. Like my father would always tell me, it's all good and fun until the rabbit got the gun. And right now, the American public has elected the rabbit. And now, guess what? It's our turn.
Yeah.
It's turnabout is fair play. It's how this system works. And that is why the American public is fed up with what we've seen. They've been fed up with the lawfare. And President Trump has picked cabinet positions that are going to execute exactly what the American people wanted. I am so pleased and so happy for the next coming days. And I cannot wait for Monday. Can't get here fast enough, sir.
But again, I'm just kind of wondering if Democrats are realizing the mistake that they made earlier in the week and pulling back on Kristi Noem, being more cooperative. And what happens next week? I mean, the president's going to come in that very first day with dozens and dozens, maybe over 100 executive orders on all kinds of things involving the border, involving crime, and involving, of course, energy. Are Democrats going to continue to try to be obstructionist, or might they be willing to play ball now, realizing it doesn't work for them politically to be obstructionist?
Well, it's in their nature to be obstructionist, but the American public gave us a Republican president, a Republican Senate, and a Republican House. And just like you said, on day one, President Trump is going to overturn all these disasters of these executive orders that have been signed in by Joe Biden to get our country right. Like you just articulated, we want to make sure that we have border security. We want our economy back. We want to feel safer. We want to unleash American energy. We want to make sure that we are respected on the global scale. All this is going to happen within the next few weeks. Actually, it's been happening for the last few months since President Trump got elected, because the world is bracing for impact for a strong America to come back again. To answer your question, sir, no, they're not going to stop. They are inherently obstructionists, but that's okay, because the American public had their say, and we're going to operate accordingly for the next few years.
By the way, my Master Sergeant son tells me, don't call me sir, I work for a living, so please call me David. But I know you'll appreciate that. On the border issue, though, clearly the Democrats must realize realize that Americans overwhelmingly, I mean, it's not just by 51%, but by 70% trust Trump over the Democrats on border issues. Won't they be a little more willing to be cooperative on border issues?
I mean, we're going to find out, but at the end of the day, they don't really have a choice. President Trump won his election because of the economy and because of the border. I'm down here in Houston, Texas. We've seen 20 million people enter this country illegally, predominantly through our borders. We've watched crime skyrocket. And so they lost this election. They lost the black male vote in Texas. We got 34% of the black male vote in Texas, so they can't even play that card anymore. Again, this is a mandate given to him by the American people. It's going to be signed via executive fiat on by President Trump on day one, and I'm glad to see it. Again, I hope they play ball with us. I hope they understand what the American people are saying. But again, I don't expect it to happen. And we don't need them as long as we stick together and execute President Trump's agenda.
Another thing is happening on day one, and whether it's coincidence or divine intervention or whatever, you have the TikTok thing and you have the Hamas-Israeli deal. Whether that's going to happen or not, there's still questions about whether it's going to happen from the Israeli side or the Hamas side. What do you make of that? And by the way, I should mention, everybody I know, and you've served in the Middle East, they say when there is a ceasefire of any kind, the terrorists use a ceasefire to regroup. They're not interested in peace. They're interested in regrouping and fighting again. Clearly, the Israelis know that, and I'm pretty sure that the Trump team understands that, even if the Biden team didn't. So how do you deal with that issue?
Well, this is actually reminiscent of the handoff from Carter to Reagan. People realize that strength is back. And so fighting and business as usual, as you've seen it in the Middle East, is going to come to an abrupt end because President Trump is back in office. But you're correct. As somebody that's served and lived in Saudi Arabia for 2 years, deployed to Iraq, I understand that the insurgency and those people that still want to do harm to the world are going to regroup during this time. And that's why peace through strength is so important. That's why Marco Rubio's role is going to be so important to make sure that we keep our finger on the scales, because we cannot allow these people to strengthen even during a time of ceasefire, because they're only going to wait for President Trump to leave before they attack again. So this is about making sure that generations to follow have the same security that we're going to have under President Trump in the next 4 years.
And of course, it's all about the mothership of terrorists, and that would be Iran. Quite literally in the Red Sea, et cetera. They operate as not only the money backers of these terrorist groups, whether it's the Houthis or Hamas or Hezbollah, but they also give them help in terms of extra spying activities, et cetera. Will we go back immediately under Donald Trump to maximum pressure, where we squeeze the Iranians economically, and possibly doing something about those nukes that they've been trying to come up with?
Well, keep in mind, when President Trump was president last time, Iran was broke. They couldn't afford to fund terror all over the world. So, again, the strength is back, and they're well aware of that. They know it's going to happen over the course of the next 4 years. President Trump is going to unleash American energy, which is going to weaken these countries, these rogue nations that actually have a nefarious agenda against not just the United States, but also our allies. So they know what's coming. What we have to do is codify this strength after President Trump is gone. We know we're going to have peace in the Middle East. We know we're going to have peace through strength. We know the world's going to line up immediately after Monday, but then what happens after that? That's going to be a Herculean task that we are certainly up for, but it's going to be with the help of President Trump, his wonderful cabinet picks, and also the Congress, and of course the Senate, to make sure that we can continue this growth and continue this strength.
The help from Israel. Finally, Israel and the United States will be locked together, not only diplomatically, but also militarily, at least in their understanding of things. Very quick final question about TikTok. We know President Trump spoke to President Xi. He announced that on Truth Social, said they actually talked about TikTok. Are you okay with reopening that law that now the Supreme Court codified today that said that you can't have TikTok in the U.S. if they don't sell it?
Well, I'm in favor of free speech, just like Elon Musk did with X. I mean, that's a free speech platform, and I want to see more of that. But also got to make sure that the Communist Chinese Party doesn't spy on us arbitrarily. So they're going to have to jettison a piece of their business to those individuals that want to purchase it from the U.S. I hope we get to that point. If the Supreme Court held it up, I certainly support it. But also, I want to see TikTok continue, because it did very well, not just for me, but for President Trump in this last election. Now, the issue is stopping China from spying on us, and we can walk and chew gum at the same time.
You know, it's amazing how all these things are happening literally on day one of Trump's watch as president. It's incredible.